Scott, the term for this video is formula. How does this work for the good place ideology?
Yeah, so the business formula for an organization is a lot of companies make automobiles, but Volkswagen has had a business formula for a long time. They had affordable transportation. Ferrari has their business formula for making automobiles, which is they make the highest tech, fastest, coolest sports cars they can. So if Ferrari would say, you know what, I want to produce a car that competes with a Volkswagen Beetle, and they put out a Ferrari name badge on a car that's like what Volkswagen makes, people are going to like, these people have lost their mind. A Ferrari doesn't look like that. So you can redefine yourself, of course, if you want to, and you want to take that risk. But what I use the term business formula for is there's the basic thing that you do, but there's the way that you do it that really expresses your vision for this. And it connects with people who care about it. And you need to manage that so that as you innovate, which is a term we're going to come up and discuss later, as you make innovations, you don't innovate your way out of your market to where people don't care about what you do. It's tricky because you do want to continue to grow and develop, and Volkswagen, while they still make affordable cars, they make really nice cars that aren't necessarily so affordable. So they sort of grew into a new business formula, but it was over time. They didn't go right from the Beetle to having a luxury four-door sedan that cost, way more than an entry-level car.
So in a previous video, we talked about the system that is going to be in an organization. And
right.
The system is speaking towards how does this thing make the product or the service that it's going to make or provide, how does it work internally, how do we keep this thing happening in a sustainable way? But is the formula here more towards how do we actually build something that sells? How do we meet this revenue, the success out there in the market?
The business formula is pretty closely related to the charter. I suppose you could say it really is just another finer point to the charter, but it's a distillation of the vision you have that sets you apart and makes you unique. It's your special sauce. And you need to manage that to stay relevant to your market, both in terms of not faking out your market and all of a sudden producing something under your name that's not what they expect, but also times and tastes change, and you've got to keep up with that. So it's a tricky thing. I always said ephemeral. It's a subtle thing to understand and manage, but it makes a world of difference.
So, I think a practical example here would be Xerox. At the beginning, they had great success with copy machines and office furniture, office machines. They actually developed the technology for the laptop. They had a working model for it, right? And they never ran with it. They sat there, let it happen. They got the laser printer going, and then Steve Jobs and Bill Gates walked through their factory. This is the story, right?
And saw the interface.
No
kidding.
Saw what was happening, and they both went out and developed
their
PC,
versions.
With their versions of the personal computer and the laptop.
Well, another story is Kodak invented digital photography, but they were a multi-billion-dollar organization selling analog, wet chemistry film photography, and they wanted to be careful how they introduced that, and they were careful enough that they never introduced it. Mm-hmm. And other people developed digital, and they're almost non-existent. They're tiny, minuscule.
So there's a sense where the formula, you need to respect it and let it work as long as it works. But as soon as you start seeing, you have to have an eye on the culture and on the future, and you have to be able to pivot and use your brand and stay within the service area or product area, so that you don't, like you said, Ferrari trying to produce a slow vehicle that
Right.
Grand locks you into a certain spot, but if you can pivot, right? And what do you think keeps people from actually making that move of moving away from a once a very successful formula to something new that is really the future?
Well, and so here's a question that I think goes right to the heart of it. What business are you in? And Kodak thought they were in the film business. They were in the imaging business. They realized that way too late. They made way too much money on film to not think that people come to us because we have the best film. They had the best way to produce images. And when they came up with a new way, they didn't want to undermine their own product with their new development. But if you don't, somebody else is going to. The railroads owned all the transportation in the country until roads started being built for automobiles. And the railroads thought that they were in the business of running trains up and down tracks, and they lost business to the trucking industry because they didn't realize they were in the transportation business. And transportation business doesn't depend on a specific technology to deliver transportation. So the business formula is related to that, but then it's how do you provide transportation? Because today there's lots of different businesses in the transportation business. There's people who do medical transportation, non-emergency medical transportation, a huge business. A lot of people make a living at that. It's not quite the business form. The business form would be how do you provide that in a way that people really care about, that's unique to you.
Right. Now, there are some examples of industries that can really expand beyond their starting point. And they usually have a name that doesn't lock them into a certain path or service or product. I'm thinking of Amazon. Starts off as really a book store.
Well, do you remember what their first tagline was? Earth's largest bookstore.
Earth's largest bookstore. I remember reading about his book work, and how there's so much history at the beginning that it really was all about a bookstore. But then there was a moment, right, when they realized they had
we got a pipeline, let's run anything through this.
We can do anything. And people didn't believe that. I mean, you had to have one person in the middle, sort of, that was sort of wild or extremely visionary and not willing to give up on the vision to make it a platform that sold everything. So what are the dangers there when, because, does it depend on an individual that is so committed to a vision of the future that he makes people do it? You have to almost be the CEO or the owner to do that. How do you start pivoting to keep your business formula straight when you're just a middle level employee or
I got 3 or 4 directions I can go off on that.
Pick the best one.
Well, quickly, just a middle level employee in a good place organization, nobody's a just.
Good.
Everyone's fully involved, which goes back to communication, training, education, development. Everyone in the organization needs to know what is our business, what is its business formula, what is it that people care about, what's our aim, and then an organization's aim, a business or a nonprofit, any organization, we keep saying business, any organization's aim needs to be to provide something that makes life better for people. And in Western capitalist economies, the aim of the business is to attract capital, affordable capital, and to return profit to investors. Whatever you do to make that happen is fine. And so they have, I'll say it, the wrong aim, which leads them to treat people the wrong way. And so that's what comes to mind because that's what we see all the time. Our businesses run for those purposes and run those ways where people are not valued except as to how they're seen to directly impact the bottom line for the business. And that's not how God values people. And labor is a means of grace that God wants freely available to everybody. And as far as the innovation goes, we're going to talk about managing innovation later, so we can put that in there.
Thank you.